First things first, Tom, where were you on the night?
I need my lawyer here.
Yeah, that's right. Tom, I just want to start by saying you have the right to remain silent. All right, man. So, why don't you give me a little breakdown of your project in your own words here?
Oh, the elevator pitch?
I mean, the elevator pitch or the friend chatting to a friend about it? Actually, it would be interesting to see what the difference is between the elevator pitch and how you tell your friend about it.
I think if I'm telling a friend about it, I'm mostly focused on how excited I am to be doing something really cool, making a thing with a bunch of cool people, you know? It's like one of my kind of favorite things in life. It's just like the most creative energy, being able to work with like your favorite people. Yeah, and the elevator pitch, it has to do with I guess the fact that I've been thinking recently about how like everything I make is a concept album, and it's almost hard for me to imagine not doing that. And I don't really consider it. It's funny to me the idea of a concept album, because everything I do is kind of like that in terms of having an idea and a top-down kind of approach to designing the aesthetic and the concept and the instrumentation and how it's going to work. And like so this one is no different. There's like basically the idea of making a record in mono has always been interesting to me, because my brother is deaf in one ear, and so I've always wondered about what it would be like to hear music only in mono always, or if you're missing information that might be on the right side if you're only hearing the left side, or vice versa. So just, you know, an interesting kind of like creative constraint for me to do something mono. And then as I was thinking about that, I was also thinking about like how you know, instead of, you know, one or two things like mono versus stereo, of course people are doing lots of Dolby Atmos, many speakers and stuff, but just thinking about like how a mono signal is like its own thing, and it's almost like it's a fascinating thing to me to think about, like just a thing in the corner that makes sound. That's what a record is. And so what if there was not just one or two but three of those things? So the idea of making 3 records that can be played individually or stacked up simultaneously and played all at the same time, synced up. That kind of emerged out of that. And then from the kind of like technical questions, I guess, it kind of emerged a lot of the more kind of thematic concept material. Just thinking about non-binary in general, thinking about how the world is never binary, and that includes emotions, that includes ideas, stuff like that. And so just kind of like trying to write a bunch of lyrical material relating to mostly love, because I feel like that's a great, you know, experiential thing that we all navigate, and how these different kind of like relationship dynamics appear and sometimes might feel binary but are often not. So I worked with kind of like ideas of orbiting planets as one kind of metaphorical jumping off point, and converging rivers was another one. Just 2 kind of courses of water coming together, and how 2 beings can intermingle and become kind of one thing. What remains the same, what remains separate, how they affect each other. And then trees growing, kind of rooted in the same soil. Yeah, so that's kind of how it all came together, and that's the elevator pitch, I guess. It's a long elevator ride. It's a tall building.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Tall building.
It's a CN Tower
That's right.
stairwell pitch.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What do you, so you put yourself in the shoes of the listener, the viewer, if you will. What's the sort of, in your ideal world, what do they walk away from your project with, or in the moment, how do they experience it? What is it that what would you like to evoke in somebody who's, experiencing your monophilia?
That's a good question. I think I'm fascinated quite a lot by things in art that reveal hidden worlds, or reveal that worlds that exist in front of our eyes are just seem hidden but are there the whole time. So I really like this idea of having like a pop record that starts out as one thing and then turns into something else and maybe never comes back, or a very minimalist kind of like improvised thing that turns into like a pop record, for instance. So how something can, like, it doesn't have to necessarily always be, kind of referring to itself somehow. And I guess, like, in terms of how people are going to experience it, there is like a plan. There's going to be installation. So there will be like an opportunity for audience members to like put on a pair of headphones at a physical installation object that exists in time and space, put on a pair of headphones and mix the 3 records together or separately, just using 3 knobs, so that they can, hear one thing emerging and then like decide to mix in some of another thing, or just listen to one record all the way through, or maybe you only like the pop elements and you can choose to hear those things. But it will be kind of interactive in that way, and a choose your own adventure thing. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to happen at the Halifax Central Library, is where it's first going to be installed, March 2nd of 2025. And I guess the conceptually, what I'm thinking about is like a sculpture garden. So these songs, these 8 little avant-garde pop songs, are like man-made objects in this big garden. And you walk through the garden and you may encounter this thing that is a sculpture, and maybe it resembles the garden, maybe it's being overgrown by the garden a little bit, maybe it's very nicely framed, maybe from one angle it appears nicely framed, and from every other angle it's just, horribly obscured, or, the idea of walking through a space like that. So experiencing, I think, all 3 of these records that are going to layer on top of each other, I want each of them to kind of feel like a different stroll through a sculpture garden, where you kind of realize that the garden is as important as the things in it, so that's a couple of different ways of answering that question, I guess.
I was curious about the title, Monophilia. Obviously, it's being recorded in mono, so that's the one side of it. But if my Latin is correct, I believe monophilia is like a love of solitude as well, too. So how does that play into or does it play at all into how you want people to experience it, or what it's about?
I think it's like, for sure, the play on words of like, or it's not a play on words, it's basically just, referring to the fact that it's a mono record, for sure, is one layer. But then dealing with themes of love and loss, and the themes of relationships a lot, which is something that became really relevant for me in writing this stuff, writing lyrics and designing the whole thing. I think it often comes back to, in relationships, like the capacity to love yourself, right? Where we end up having all of these difficulties communicating or accepting something, or being available to someone, or being a good listener, or all of the things that end up feeling like problems with the other person or with the relationship are actually just like, maybe you need to work on loving yourself. And it's something that I've experienced for sure quite a lot in life, but also in recent years. So yeah, that's monophilia, where it ends up that it's the relationship with yourself is really the thing.
How it all that affects everything outward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to listen to music by yourself or with other people?
I really like listening to music with other people. I mean, it's a different experience, I guess. But for me, there's no better way of like getting into a new artist or a new record or a new song or whatever than from someone else, like the old school thing of like, you have to hear this song, and someone, a trusted friend, like just being super stoked about something and walking me through it, curating the experience and being like, you know, listen for this, or like, you're in this kind of mood, I've got the perfect thing. That's, for me, that's better than any playlist or algorithm will ever be, because, you know, that's what makes me care about something. So
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Have you told your brother about the project?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does he think about it?
Yeah, he's into it.
Yeah.
I asked his permission at first because I wanted to use, I just wanted to basically have that idea be a central jumping off point. And so I was like, oh, I should probably make sure he's cool with that. But yeah, and my brother's a musician as well. He's a good trumpet player, and he's got really good taste in music. So I hope he likes it.
He's like, why didn't I think of it?
Yeah.
Circling back to the binary, do you think there's ever a binary in the world?
Such a good question. I don't know. I mean, in some ways, maybe yes. I don't know. Maybe it's just like on some level everything is language, and on some level that language is just a tool for understanding the world. And if we're just categorization or pattern recognition machines, then maybe binary does exist on that level. I think it's certainly something that, because it feels such a powerful impulse in thought, I'm tempted to think that maybe that it's working on a really deep level, because it often feels like we're doing that in all different like levels of thought, good versus evil, etc. We always want to simplify things as much as we can to make it feel like, like the world is not just an insanely complicated place that makes us want to go crazy, which I think it maybe would if we weren't just pattern recognizing the whole time. So yeah, I think binary exists on the level of thought, but it's a tool that serves us in a very limited way, and as with most thought patterns, we should probably be a little bit careful about how and when we use it.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is one of your previous projects, and one of my favorite projects of all time, Unfolding River, where you write a piece to every verse of the Tao Te Ching. I'm not sure how prominent Taoism is in your philosophy. I mean, enough so that you did this project, and that to me, I guess, or it could be argued, uses a binary in a lot of its teachings. That, like, you look at the yin yang, it's like the most sort of everything, one thing creates the other,
right.
And how does that fit into a non-binary world? But I guess you've answered that question with it being a sort of tool to convey a message.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and that's one of the things I love about Taoism, is it is also explicitly saying, it's seemingly, from my limited understanding, is that it often says things like, you can only point at it. You cannot actually describe the thing. So
right.
Here's a bunch of ways of thinking about this thing. But also with like a lot of the binary concepts, know the masculine but cleave to the feminine, or how like the yin and the yang contain each other, and it's really the balance of those things, or that they don't just contain each other, but they are the same thing, just at different aspects of the same thing. So it seems like it's always wanting to point toward a unity, but even the words unity and point are themselves kind of like almost dualistic, because they almost suggest that there's something else. There's a thing that's pointing and there's a thing that's not unity somehow. So I mean, yeah, language is weird.
Language is weird.
Yeah.